club since December 2008 and has served previously in all functions. During the day, Ryan daydreams about completing his CTM number 10, and dreams about to come true. In addition to the manual objectives, Ryan's personal objectives are to engage the audience, to use vocal variety, and to have fun. Welcome Ryan Colligan, White Men Can't Jump. White Men Can't Jump, Ryan Colligan.
My stomach was tied up in knots. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest. My palms were getting sweaty and I was nervous. The year was 1997. I was a freshman in high school. And at that point in my life, the only thing I really cared about was basketball. I loved basketball. Obsessed is a safe word. I mean, I drank, ate, and slept the sport. Even outside of playing basketball, I loved it. I mean, my favorite movie at the time was White Men Can't Jump, a movie about basketball. And it sounds silly to me now, but back then, I truly thought I was going to be a professional basketball player. I mean, that was my dream. And so my direction was set. The reason I was nervous was because I was about to embark on that dream. At that moment, I stood with 14 other guys waiting in front of the men's locker room at San Lorenzo Valley High School. Behind those locked doors was the final list for the freshman boys team. I knew I was on it. It was just a matter of time before I got there and started playing. So the doors opened, we rushed in. I went up and looked on the list to find my name. I looked, I got cut. I could not believe it. After all my hard work, the countless hours, the summers, the summer camps, the basketball camps, the investment that I had made in my dream, and I still failed. I felt my heart just get ripped out of my chest, crushed. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and anyone who has ever experienced failure in pursuit of a goal, tonight I want to challenge the way we think about failure. I want to talk about the benefits of failure. So let me first talk about failure. Failure is something that instinctively we hate because it creates fear. And we don't like fear. We like our safety zone, our comfort bubble, where everything is safe and warm and known and expected. Well, we know as Toastmasters, the problem with that type of thinking is it's limiting. We don't want to do things that are only safe because we're not challenging ourselves in what we're capable of. It'd be the equivalent of going out to play a round of golf. You go, you get your ball, you tee up, you grab your driver to drive the ball, and then you look in your hand and you realize you don't have a driver, you've got a hockey stick. You're operating at a handicap. Now when I talk about failure, I don't talk about it because I'm the foremost expert on it. I'm not. I'm battled the fear of failure all the time, and I've been challenged by this fear, and it's held me back. So when I speak about this, I'm speaking to all of you the same way I'm speaking to myself, because I identify it as a weakness, and I want to get over it. And what I've realized is that the most successful people in life are actually those people that fail the most. And I'll give you two examples. The first is Babe Ruth. We all recognize Babe Ruth as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, baseball player of all time. This guy stepped up to the plate and crushed 714 balls out of the park. He didn't get there by swinging at pitches he only knew he could hit. He swung each and every time he saw an opportunity. And a little lesser known fact about Babe Ruth is not only is he the home run king, but he's also amongst the leaders in striking out. So he has over 1,300 strikeouts throughout his Major League Baseball career. In other words, he failed over twice as often as he succeeded, and he's still considered one of the greatest of all time. The other person I want to bring up, second person, is Thomas Edison. Now in grade school, we all learned that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. But did you know it took him over 10,000 attempts to try to invent the light bulb before he actually did it successfully? Can you imagine failing at something 10,000 times and doing it over and over and over again? I mean, he gives new meaning to the word persistent. Ruth and Edison both have the same mentality. They knew that failure was simply an obstacle and an opportunity to improve and do it again. And I think failure really motivated these guys. It acted as fuel as opposed to a distractor. Now I talked about my own failures, and I'll relate my own personal story. When I was in high school and even up into college, one of my biggest fears was this: public speaking. Being up in front of a room of 25, 30 people and giving a speech. I mean, it got so bad that when I was picking my college courses, I would actively look for ones that didn't have a speaking or presentation element to them. So I knew that this was a weakness, and I knew it was something that I wanted to overcome. So when I got out of college, I made a promise to myself to get into a Toastmasters club and address this fear and get over it. So I made it official on New Year's Eve, my first year out of school. I said, I'm going to join a Toastmasters club. I'm going to start giving speeches. I want to put this fear of public speaking behind me. That was my first year out of school. My second year out of school, my New Year's resolution, it might sound similar, was to join a Toastmasters club, start giving speeches, and put this fear of speaking in public behind me. Because I didn't do anything my first year. I let that fear control me and limit me. So that was fear. I'll tell you about failure. Now I can remember, I'm sure we all can remember, the first time walking through the doors, sitting down, and looking at the clock, hoping we get through the 49 minutes until the break without having to give a table topics. Well, I remember my first table topics, and failure is too kind of a word. I mean, I stood up, and it was more like crash and burn, a slow and painful 2-minute death in front of a group of 30 strangers. I mean, it was miserable. After that, I wanted to crawl under a rock and sleep there and never come out again because it just wasn't fun. But as we can all relate, the more often you come to Toastmasters, the more often you do it, the easier it becomes. And that's the same thing with failure. The more often you address it, the easier it is to swallow. And so I watched the movie White Men Can't Jump again recently. And I realized this isn't a movie about basketball. This is a movie about human weaknesses and overcoming challenges. And you know, we all have this, we all share a human weakness in that we all fear failure. And we all have challenges. And when I failed to make the basketball team my freshman year, I realize now that that was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Because it taught me that failure is inevitable. No matter how hard we try, no matter what we do, we're all going to experience failure at some point in our lives. The best thing to do, though, is to realize that it's a challenge and not let it dictate your actions. Because failure, true failure isn't failure. True failure is failing to try. Thank you, Mrs. Toastmaster.